Hey everybody, it's Deborah King. Welcome to our Tuesday show. We've got a really interesting topic today. We're going to talk all about breast cancer. We have a couple of experts on. Let's wait a minute here and make sure that we are live on Facebook. Hang out with me for just a minute. We're just getting everything rolling here. All right, good to see everybody on Facebook. This is really, an auspicious time to be discussing breast cancer. It's not a very cheery topic, I know, but it is October, and we all try to bring our focus on it in October. It's an incredibly important topic, not just for women, but for men, because guys and gals, 1 in every 8 women get breast cancer today, and in just a mere 20 years, it's going to be something like 1 in every 2 or 3. Really, really scary statistics, aren't they? So I have a couple of experts on who are survivors of breast cancer. We'll start with Mindy Malone. Let's bring Mindy live. And Mindy, can you join me? Here you are. Hi, Mindy. Great to see you.
Hello.
Hi there. So I know you're a survivor, and you've spoken on this topic and written on this topic. So tell our Facebook audience a little bit about your own experience.
Okay, so 5 years ago, I was diagnosed with advanced stage breast cancer, and it was terrifying. I actually went in for a mammogram because I was about to switch out my mommy makeover implants after I had had 3 babies and nursed them all. I had done the mommy makeover because why not? And it was a disaster. I had a lot of complications with them. In fact, I had 5 surgeries in 4 years. And interestingly, that was all on my right, or actually on my left implant. And then suddenly right before I was gonna switch the saline implants out to silicone variety to hopefully that would be a better match for me, my right implant ruptured. So for a really long time, my body had been trying to tell me something. And, I hadn't felt anything. I was relatively clueless about breast cancer, despite the fact that, my mom's best friend of forever had just passed away from it. And so had the woman who actually married my husband and I and baptized our 3 kids. And without a family history, I just never worried about it. I just figured it wouldn't happen to me. And the only reason I even went in for the mammogram was because I knew after the 5th surgery, I was not going to want to have my breast crushed in that machine anytime soon. So, I went in, and the night before, I went in and got in on a last-minute cancellation. So the mammogram clinic was the hardest one to get in the city, and there was a notorious 12-month wait, but I decided to call, and I got in on a last-minute cancellation, and went in, thought everything had gone fine, got a letter in the mail, you want to take a second look at something? And the night before that second look, I remember running my hand across my left implant, and in kind of the 1 o'clock position next to my armpit, which, ladies, is where most breast cancer is found. So if you're going to start looking somewhere, it's the 1 o'clock position.
Now,
And
so hold on, let me ask a question. That's 1 o'clock standing outside looking at you, or 1 o'clock inside of you?
1 o'clock. So 1 o'clock
Either
standing
way.
outside, or yeah.
Either way, if you're looking down, I get it.
Yes. So
Yeah,
like,
that's not a well-known fact. Why don't you repeat that for everybody, Mindy? I wasn't aware of that.
okay, so most breast cancer is found in the upper 1 o'clock position on right near your armpit, on, I believe, the left side most of the time too. Don't quote me on that one, but I know it's the 1 o'clock position. And so, you know, when we're being trained to check, which I wasn't, because I really was not worrying about this. You know, you got the whole training and checking the whole breast, and really the point that needs to be focused on most is that 1 o'clock position. So, you know, I just ran my hand across it, and there was a flash of something in my mind, and suddenly my fingers felt something, what I can only describe as sponge-like, and I felt fear. And then it both was, you know, the sponginess, and it just was gone. So I was sitting in the waiting room, waiting with a, you know, regular, got to get a second look gal, just chitty chatting. And suddenly it took a turn. I really started getting nervous about, you know, what was taking so long, and, you know, why did I have to keep going back in for all these views? And I really had told myself that it was just going to be the scarring, and from all the messed up former implant procedure. So it's like, I can explain all of this. Let me just see the doctor. Because the doctor was behind the curtain the whole time, like behind the scenes. And soon I found myself just disappearing into this labyrinth of diagnosis. And it was just like a maze of hallways and waiting rooms. And suddenly 6 hours later, which isn't quite suddenly, I found myself laying on my side, getting a core biopsy of a suspicious looking lymph node, and something on it was an ultrasound guided biopsy, and something on the screen that felt very, very foreign, and it looked very spiky, and it just did not feel a part of me. But the doctors, who all really seemed to be working for me, which was an important, you know, attitude about all the, you know, medical personnel that I was going to have to start dealing with. You know, they were all looking at me really seriously, and I just, you know, it wasn't good. And I had already been told by the doctor who had done the ultrasound that she thought I had breast cancer. So it was a Friday, and I was really lucky because they were able to do, you know, not only, you know, suspect, they were actually able to do the biopsy, and it all lined up. But unfortunately, you know, breast cancer is not convenient. And I found this out right away because my husband had forgotten his cell phone at home that day. So I was completely, you know, was out of communication with him.
But I would have killed him.
Oh, I was so, I mean, it was so
That's
frustrating.
mind-boggling. Yeah, that's not a good day. That's
no. And then also I had a preschooler who went half day to school, and the babysitter couldn't stay. So my best friend went over, grabbed my youngest daughter, brought her to school. You know, it was just, thankfully, still very, very have much gratitude for my friend who ended up really helping me all along the way. But so anyway, I had to wait the entire weekend to find out the results, and it was excruciating. I mean, I had these pads under, you know, my armpit, and it was really, really sore, and it just was really hard to get my mind off of it, not only because of the pain, but just the pretending was exhausting in front of the girls. So I was only 41 years old, and I had 3 little girls at home. So you know, the waiting and pretending was not fun. Anyway, the doctor told me that she would call me at 3:30 on Monday afternoon, and my husband took off work, and we spent the day together, and we ended up going to our daughter's spring talent show, and I just could not focus. So I told him I was going to walk home and clear my head, and I ended up walking to a church, and it was this very elaborate cathedral where I'm not Catholic, but I think like the bishop can speak. Like it was a giant church, and the door was locked. And I remember just really feeling the need to be in God's presence when I got this phone call, but I couldn't get in. And my mind raced to figure out where the next nearest church was, and you know, that I would have time to get to. And I was running out of time. So I went to the beach to get the call. I was within walking distance, and
Well, I kind of like that better.
I do too, actually. It makes so much more sense because that is actually where I find God.
Well,
Yeah.
what did they say, Mindy?
Well, the phone rang, I picked it up, and it was cancer on the other end of the line. And the woman, the doctor, was very calm, cool, and collected, and just, you know, very matter of fact, gave me, you know, all the information they knew at that point. And, you know, that began the journey. And literally, it was like having the rug pulled out from under me. I had walked into that mammogram clinic that day, and you know, as like a fabulous city mom, and I walked out as a breast cancer patient. And so anyway, I chose the most aggressive form of treatment and the best doctors, and that involved a double mastectomy and months of chemo and radiation.
May I ask, when, you know, we always hear that, and of course I had cancer in my 20s, that they tell you about, you know, what type you have, what level. What did they tell you, Mindy?
They didn't know that yet, because the thing that was really frustrating and so interesting that, you know, a patient has to be so patient. It was a very slow reveal. It was
This is
just
what you love.
little pieces of the puzzle coming together over a lot of different tests. And it just, the waiting was excruciating. So I ended up having stage 3 breast cancer, but I didn't find that out until after the double mastectomy.
And stage 3, for our listeners and viewers, tell them what that means in a nutshell.
So that means that based on a bunch of factors, including the size of the tumor or tumors, which in my case, I had 3 tumors communicating with each other, lovingly wrapped around my old implant, which I had many doctors
which they
tell me.
adored.
Yeah, they were like, whoa, I'll never forget that visual. But so it's a combination of the size of the largest tumor and the number of lymph nodes that are affected. Now, I qualified as top of stage 3, actually, because my tumor was as big as, the largest one was as big as it could get without going to stage 4. And then, you know, I had several lymph nodes involved, but they were all removed. But anytime cancer has spread out of the ducts, I had, you know, it started in my milk ducts and, you know, came out. And then my lymph nodes were doing exactly what they were supposed to be doing, collecting, you know, foreign invaders in my body. And so there was signs of cancer in, you know, I think 8 out of 15 nodes that were removed. And yeah,
Well, let
was,
me get you to flash forward to the part of the story where you find all these alternative avenues that you take in addition to the top-notch surgery and chemo.
Yes.
Which you espoused, and which I would urge all of our viewers and listeners to espouse.
Yes.
But tell us what else you did.
Well, I was very lucky because one of the really cool things, and this was 5 years ago, and I'm sure this has advanced, but was that there was a lot of complementary care during the chemo process. There was acupuncturists walking around, massage therapists, there was a grant, and you could choose the alternative doctor you wanted to go see. I went and saw a naturopath, but actually I felt like we weren't on the same page with some things. So, you just really have to use your discernment. And all the doctors fell into place, the ones who needed to, and it really, I didn't really start to, seek energy medicine until after I was just finished with radiation. So, it was after being, up in my master bedroom for months alone in silence in what I can now identify as meditation. Soon I found myself communing with my higher self and surrendering to the divine. And just, after the chemo was absolutely hell. There was this one that I remember was called the Red Devil, and appropriately so, it was this bag of red liquid, and I had to it took 6 hours to deliver into my port, but I had to have a whole bag of IV of other drugs before it. So it's called adriamycin, wouldn't kill me, because in there was steroids and antihistamines and anti-nausea that they had to deliver before they could give you the drug.
The irony is you were a healthy young woman. I mean,
I know.
I realize I'm saying something ironic, but that's why you survived the treatment.
Yes. And that really, I just got chills. That was really the question. And, my loved ones had to sit by and just really hope that I could make it through the treatment. And, I remember getting chemo and thinking how important it was that red bag, I instead of it being red, I turned it to gold in my mind, like gold, liquid gold from God going in to my body. And that was very helpful. And I started to see everyone who was helping.
Great imagery.
Yeah, as angels.
Well,
everyone.
Let's just stop for a minute and suggest to our audience today that that kind of visualization, of course, is extremely healing. And there's been all sorts of scientific tests done in the last 20 or 30 years. Look at the Symington study, which is now 30 years old, that shows with empirical data that if you can visualize it, your body believes what you're visualizing it and creates it. So you believe the medicine was gold and your body became gold.
Yes.
Yeah. It's really a fact. Go on, Mindy. Right. Very interesting.
Well, and it was interesting too, because after the double mastectomy, on the other hand, because it really is a battle in your mind between whether you're going to carry faith or fear. And I woke up from having both my breasts cut off, and my room nurse, for some reason, which I will never understand, I was just becoming coherent, but she took it upon herself to inform me that cancer really likes to come back. And here I was, literally, so relieved to get it out of my body. Finally, it's out. That's the only thing. I mean, I just wanted it out. And it literally, I could feel like darkness in the room, just testing and tempting me. And that was going to be a really, challenging, like, I just couldn't let it in. I knew it was going to be such a dangerous thought, and I just couldn't let it in. And, speaking of thoughts, every woman I knew growing up that had breast cancer had died from breast cancer. And
that's no longer the case at all.
Right, right. but that was a massive like association.
It's one of the more curable.
Yes, yes. But that association for me and that belief, I was going to have to overcome. And our minds just play such an important role in, healing. And I was home shortly after I had that mastectomy, and that really negative thought delivered to me, and about, breast cancer, or cancer likes to come back. And I found in a pile of papers on my desk a card I had bought long ago, and on it was this woman, and she was holding sparkles in her apron, and it said, "What will you carry today? Will it be faith or fear?" And I put that next to my bed.
That's
and I
beautiful.
looked at it every morning. So, but that was delivered to me at just the right time. I had bought it, years ago. I mean, before it, I don't know what it was doing in that pile of papers. So anyway, that is the question. And today I actually was at the grocery store, and there was a t-shirt that said, it was for Breast Cancer Awareness Month at the grocery store. And it said, faith over fear. And, that message has really evolved, because it's always been fight, join the fight. And it's not about fighting, it's about acceptance and surrender, and allowing it to teach you what it came to teach.
So I remember, and I have said this myself many years ago, and I remember you saying at one point, soon after I met you, that, was maybe one of the greatest things that ever happened to you was to get breast cancer. And people have such a hard time understanding that statement, don't they?
Yes. And breast cancer actually gave me my life back because I'd been coasting for a really long time, and, pretending that, I had been
pretending things were okay.
Yes, I was denying 41 years of unprocessed negative emotions that, I don't have to feel this, and I'll just put that in the closet, and pretty soon I couldn't shut the closet, and then, breast cancer came and bit me in the boob. It literally, it was a great gift. It looked like a curse. It looked like it was going to rob my life, but it was such a blessing, and has taught me just so much about myself, and literally handed me, it picked me up and put me on this path, this healing path that has led me here today. And it gave me, it connected me with what I believe my soul purpose. And I think that I survived to help others through
definitely
cancer.
Definitely. And can I ask you about one other thing? So if I could just talk about you for a moment. I met Mindy, it's been 4 or 5 years now, I would say, shortly after you'd had surgery.
Yep.
And there you were sitting in an audience. Let me just briefly tell this story. So I had been on a road tour for maybe 10 years and was pretty beat up from the thing, and was getting sick all the time, and was headed to a workshop when I decided I better swing into the doctors and get some help, because I remember not being able to breathe very well. So I swung into the doctors, and she's like, "You know what? You have pneumonia. You are not going to present a workshop this weekend." So it was my first experience of remoting in to a workshop. And you were there, but you were new to me. I didn't know who you were, but at some point you stood up, and I had a really good view of the people who came up front. And I remember sitting in my little office with my high fever, looking at this little screen and thinking, is that the Archangel Michael, or is that one of the attendees? Because the way I sense that particular angel is I either see or sense these wings. Sometimes I hear them, sometimes I see them. The whole thing's very trippy. And so I'm looking at this little screen, I'm thinking, I do have a fever. but I'd swear that's the Archangel Michael. And then I realized that it was you and me and the Archangel. We were all merged for a moment. It was very beautiful. Many years go by, and you're quite a writer, and you send me your manuscript not long ago of a book you're writing, couple 3 months ago, and I start reading it, and there is this story of you and the Archangel Michael right about the time you learned you had cancer, and then again upstairs in the upstairs room that you had going on when you were recovering and surviving the chemo. So you were already really tied into him, so it was no joke.
Right.
It was not an illusion. It was not my fever.
No.
We really were connected to him. So tell our audience a little bit about that, because that was pretty amazing.
Yeah, well, I had been guided to you after going and having a reading by an intuitive, which is a long story, but I just will say at the end of the reading, which was right after I'd finished treatment, she slid this paper across the desk and said, "This is for you." And on it was your picture, and you were going to be at National Louis University in Chicago like a week later. And, I'm like, after everything I've been through, I know that I am being guided. And I didn't know anything about you. I hadn't read any of your books. And I sat in the audience and you walked in, and I knew right then, I was like, this is what this has been all about. And so when I had a lot of interesting things happen during the whole journey, really. I had encountered Archangel Michael a couple times throughout my life, where he really stepped in and I believe saved my life. Once in a car accident and once in a back alley. And so when I was first diagnosed, we headed out to our cottage in Michigan that Memorial Day weekend. It was right after I found out. And, I was so hesitant to take breast cancer with me there, because really that was the only place I really, my entire life, could find peace. And I just didn't want to bring this into that sacred space. And long story short, there was a swan out on the beach that my daughter had alerted me to. And after growing up there every summer of my life, I'd never seen a single trumpet swan by itself out on the big lake. They're on the little lake, but to be out in the big water like that was kind of unusual. And I went down, and the swan and I, connected, made eye contact, and it kind of led me down the beach, and I sat down, I got out of the water, and in that moment, it's kind of hard to explain. And, but that swan let me know that it was Archangel Michael. And that really, the whole journey is what for me was filled with all sorts of guidance and, mystery and mysticism, getting back and finding my health and, recovering with, the aids of more than definitely just, human doctors. It led me into, it connected me with my higher self. And our higher self is directly connected to the divine. So just all along the way, I was given these signs, and they're really for all of us. They're not just for me. The universe is always communicating with us. And, being told you have the C word really heightened my senses. And I kind of
it does, yes.
Yeah, I kind of already had that growing up. I had a rough childhood and family life, and I played outside a lot, and I felt a presence always watching over me. And as I grow up, I kind of lost connection with that. And that
cancer reconnected you.
Totally.
Super story, Mindy. I'm going to add another panelist to our discussion today. And I really appreciate your taking the time to share your experience with the audience, because, again, it's 1 in every 8 women. A statistical smaller incidence for men. I stumbled on a new TV series over the weekend. I just looked it up a second ago. It's called, I'm not necessarily recommending it to people. It's called A Million Little Things. The pilot is about this young 30-ish looking woman with breast cancer. And I'm like, I don't know. I know it's October. I'm not sure I can deal with this, but I'm now watching about number 3 or 4 because it's so well done. But yeah, it needs to be in the public consciousness. So thank you so much for bringing it to everyone in this very opportune time of October. But don't go away. I want you to stay on the panel, and I'm going to go get another one of our gifted speakers. I'm looking for Cathy. Actually, I'm not seeing Cathy. Where'd you go, Cathy? You were here a second ago. Here you are. And I'll talk a little bit about Cathy Gabrielsen as she's heading our way. Like Mindy, hi Cathy, she's a breast cancer survivor with an incredible, really an incredible journey of her own. Go ahead, Cathy, tell our audience about you and your experience. And don't forget to talk about your nonprofit.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I was so interesting to hear Mindy's story because I had no idea that your cancer had started from ductal carcinoma. So my cancer was ductal carcinoma. So Mindy's story is that she was a little bit more of an advanced in her cancer. She was stage 3, obviously, which involves much more aggressive at that time. It's out of the lymph node. I mean, it's out of the ducts and in the lymph nodes. I had just had a baby, and for months I kept thinking that I was 32, and I kept thinking that I had a breast infection. And I had always had trouble breastfeeding my kids. I never got enough milk. There was always issues with breastfeeding, but
were you breastfeeding your infant?
I never was able to get enough milk. So I started it, but my milk was never, I was never that person that had the letdown. I never.
Yeah, because how old were you at this time?
I was 32 at the time.
Well, that'd be the last thing I'd be thinking about would be breast cancer. I'd think, I've got maybe a infection.
Yeah. And I think the one thing that there's a couple things I would love to get across to the people that are listening is that tuning into your own body, because if I hadn't tuned into myself and realized that there was something that wasn't right, I would have just listened to everyone that said, oh, you're 32 years old. You don't have a direct family with breast cancer. I always say I was always the 2%. I was 32. The number 2 just seems to keep always coming up. I was 32 when I had it, and everything was the 2%. There was a 2% chance that it was cancer. There was a 2% chance it was out of my ducts. There was always, there was a 2% chance I'd get an infection from the surgeries. And, but I felt like my breast was swelling, like I would have had a breast infection. And I went to my OBGYN because I just had the baby, and we did an ultrasound, and that came up negative. And then a few months later, I thought, oh God, this is so tender. And then they would say, oh, there's no pain with breast cancer usually, so it's an unrare.
Usually.
Usually. So I went back to my doctor and I said, I just don't feel like this is right. Now, this had been months later. And he said, let's just, give you peace of mind. There's probably not breast cancer. You're too young, and all the other things don't add up that you would. So I went and got a mammogram. And one thing I always did was I always made really good friends with my doctors. I really should have been in sales because I ended up with all their cell phone numbers. I never took advantage of them, but I always asked if I could get them. Why not? And the good thing I had them because I had a couple emergencies where I texted them and said, you better get to the hospital. I'm heading there now. But I remember when we were reading the mammogram, and then it was like there was the films, because I had it when I was 32. I'm 48 now, and it's interesting. After a while, you stop counting the years. But I remember him putting the film up to the screen, and we looked at it, and he said, "There's no way that's cancer, because if it's cancer, it's everywhere." And I just remember it wasn't like a lump; it was just a polka dotted screen. And no, he said it's not. That does not look how cancer looks. And then I said to him, "I'm sorry, but it's every." And he said, you don't have cancer. And then I ended up having a biopsy, and sure enough, it was ductal carcinoma, but they said it's so rare and you're so young, it's not out of your ducts, just have a mammogram, blah, 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 blah. So anyway, it was out of my ducts, but I'm the face of the early detection part of breast cancer, you know, pushing yourself, asking for the tests that you haven't gotten so that you do get peace of mind.
Well, you know, hopefully this show today, Cathy, will inspire a lot of women to go get their tests.
Yeah, because there's some tests that diagnose different types of cancer. That certain type of cancer that I had, it wasn't found on a ultrasound. So I had to push for the mammogram to get to find out that I actually had it.
Aren't they usually done the other way around though? Mammograms are customary and ultrasounds usually second line.
Yeah, but I'm not sure if it was how long it was ago or not. But I think maybe it was probably more expensive. I don't know. Maybe my doctor was just trying to appease me and to did an ultrasound. But anyway, so I did. And I think that one of the things that I'm sure maybe there's other people on this call that can relate to is that, you know, because I was diagnosed at an early age, I was stage 1.
Early juncture and early age.
At early juncture and early age, I always felt that I should feel good. I should be grateful. I should be grateful for a stage 1 diagnosis. I should be okay with the fact that, you know, I had breast cancer because it was, you know, such an early age, and I get new breasts. I get these fake implants that, you know, so many women maybe have wanted but never wanted to admit, and I get them because I had cancer. So I often heard so many upsides. I was this early stage, and, you know, it was, so there was parts of me that felt bad for feeling bad that I actually was upset that I had cancer. And I can remember my kids were 3 and 1 at the time. And the day I got back from the hospital, I went and I took my kids to Chuck E. Cheese because I just was a superhero mom when it started, and I was going to come back from cancer being the superhero mom with cancer. And I had my drains, and, you know, I schlepped my kids. You know, I had someone pick me up. Oh, my mother-in-law, and I wasn't going to listen to her. If she said no, I was like, take me to Chuck E. Cheese with my kids. And I desperately wanted to play with my kids and be a good mom. And so often you hear, whether you're a husband or wife, you know, or mother or father, you know, when you get that cancer diagnosis, the first thing I would imagine that other moms and dads felt like I did was, who's going to take care of my kids? And I took care of my kids. I was fortunate enough to stay home and take care of them, but I had a really hard time managing myself and my cancer. Managing nurturing my kids and nurturing myself. My kids got the nurturing part of me, which is one of the reasons why I had breast cancer to begin with. But I didn't balance it very well.
Stop and just reflect on that for a moment. Do you believe that, so many of us women, we overcare? Do you think you took on too much?
I definitely do.
Responsibility for others, whether it's your children, your partner, your boss. I mean, yeah, we're very inclined to do that. We women were raised to do that.
Yes.
Well, at least everyone I know was.
Yeah, absolutely. I wholeheartedly believe. I didn't come across energy medicine and energy healing in your Life Force Energy program, you know, until I needed to really heal. I was just constantly found myself getting sicker and sicker. But I had some life experiences before my breast cancer that I had a tremendous amount of guilt. I had a lot of, I survived something that I was terribly felt so guilty about surviving. So I had survivor's guilt. I had things I had to forgive myself for feeling. I certainly didn't feel loved at the time, but I was really good at loving and caring for people, and I did that. So now I know today that my heart chakra was a constant on give, and nothing was coming back in, and I was just depleting and filling that heart with really nothing that I needed. And I really, honest to God, truly believe that that dysfunction in my heart chakra was directly related to my breast cancer. There was a time I can remember when I knew I was never going to die of cancer because I was diagnosed at an early stage. But like a lot of other people, maybe I wasn't dying in that moment, but I was always afraid that it was going to come back and I would die at some point again of cancer. And I can honestly say, after everything that I've learned in these courses and this Life Force Energy program, is that I don't think, I know I never will. It's no longer a fear. It's no longer anything that I'll ever dream that I'll die of old age.
Loving hearing that. And I think that your message is so important for people in all stages of their lives and stages of their health, especially people who are sick, Cathy.
Yeah.
Really.
And I remember when my kids were 3 and 1 at the time, and your testament, your Michael story. Well, I was very connected to Our Lady, the Mother, the Divine, and when I look back at it now, I was always Lourdes Water, and my surgery was on the day of our feast day of Our Lady of Lourdes, and so she was definitely always an inspiration, and I know she was there for me and tapping me on the shoulder when I needed it. And I was encouraged to give back as a result of my cancer. I knew that there was a purpose for it. It was I knew it. I knew it in my heart that there was a reason why I had it, and I was going to do something with it. And I can remember when I was sitting on the floor and I was playing with my son, and I was holding a Power Ranger, and he was 3 at the time, and I just couldn't play with them. And I remember I went upstairs in my shower and I just started crying, and I said, oh my gosh, I can't even cuddle my own children. And I remember I was like Mary Poppins. I used to be a teacher, and I filled up a bin of toys, and I found people in our community that had cancer. And I took my bin of toys, and my kids would help me fill up my toys. I would take their toys. And to this day, they're still upset about those toys. And I would bring this bin of toys to people's houses that had cancer, and I would play with their kids and tell them to go take a nap. And then I gave a bin to my mom, and then I gave a bins to my sisters. And in the meantime, I I was calling hospitals and all different places and figuring out where the needs were in our community. And I established Cuddle My Kids, which is a nonprofit organization that provides free support services to families with cancer.
This is just a little something Cathy did while she was too sick to walk. She started a nonprofit that became incredibly successful. Yeah. You're kind of a doer, Cathy.
I just have it in me. And that might just be my life thing I have to stop doing. But it's still around today. It's I started it in 2007. It serves about 1,000 people a year, and there's a full-time staff that runs it in our community, and they serve a lot of people. So there's been some flowers that came out of this,
Yes, and look like Mindy. Look at how this is. You just did a 180. Look how it changed your life. That you took those lemons and made lemonade out of it. And and if I could talk about you for a second, Cathy, like Mindy, you've gone on and now you're a teacher and a speaker and a writer. And check out her website, Gabrielsenhealingcenter.com. Here, I'll drop it in the, maybe one of the attendees can drop it in the chat window for everybody to see. Drop Cathy's website in. So just recently, just a couple weeks ago, I had a friend of mine give me a call, a gal named Carol Lurie, who's an amazing healer and naturopath and acupuncturist, and really a very talented woman who's really devoted years now to the study of and healing of breast cancer. And she has put together a course she calls The Path of Breast Cancer. And, it's all about all of the alternative things you want to be doing while you're having surgery, while you're in chemo. You consider, your nutrition and your reducing your stress level. And, for you, it, might be yoga, or think of all the different ways that you can tackle this. And so I want to bring this course to you for you to think about. I will can't talk and chew gum at once, but I'll drop it over here in the chat window in a second, a link to it, and check it out. Okay, you guys, I think it's maybe Dina could do that for me. I think it's a real opportunity to if you want to delve very deeply into this topic. She's done a heck of a good job on it. So she's basically written a book and then turned it into a course. And I really do respect her. So that's one of the things that I wanted to focus on in today's program. I wanted to bring it to you. So let's take some questions. I know we have some, I see some hands in the air over here. Now remember, this is our new platform. So bear with me while I figure it out. But when I go to hand raise, I see Nusiba. Nusiba, go ahead, I can hear you. I see your hand in the air.
Hi.
Hi, speak up just a little so I can hear you better.
Okay. I am here. I'm a first timer with you in this program. I am attending
Wonderful. Well,
Sutra
welcome.
course. Thank you
Great,
so much.
great.
I am so honored. Oh my God, my heart is beating so hard.
It's all right.
I am in the beginning of my spiritual awakening, and I'm having so many challenges, and I just want to know a word from you that would keep me going on.
Can you talk a little more?
I have two daughters. I did not want to have kids because of the responsibility that I was not. I just thought that I'm not the one to take care of kids. But now I have two daughters, and I'm trying my best to do the best I can. I am Assyrian, and actually I lived in Nigeria for all my life. So I am not. I know very little about this world of spirituality. I was not introduced to this world just recently by just searching and trying to get out of all this pain and negativity that I lived with my family and my culture and my religion, everything that was imposed on me.
Saibah, did I miss, you broke up a little bit. Did I miss your telling me what city you're in at the moment?
I am in Istanbul, Turkey.
Istanbul, that's what I thought you said. And can you just narrow your question down a little bit for me?
What do you see for me? Like, where am I heading to? What do you think it should be my next step?
I'm not getting a clear answer on that. That's why I was asking you the exact city you're in.
Okay.
I'll tell you what I can discern is that your higher chakras are very open. That would be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and it looks like 9 are very open. So you're very spiritually connected. Are you already doing a spiritual practice of some kind? You've got a real good base.
Yeah, I'm doing the sutra practices. It's 3 weeks into it right now.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll nail it in. So you're
Wow.
studying my Be a Modern Master class.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, I am.
I get it.
Yes.
Well, you're very successful at that. You're very open, and you know we'd love to have you join us and participate more because you're already kind of there, if you know what I mean. You're going to be teaching and leading in some way. Do you have any idea about how that could work for you now, where you are now?
No, not clear right now. No.
Feels like maybe you need a little more training of your own, and then you'll just sort of start teaching the way Mindy and Cathy have here in the last year or so. It just sort of develops naturally. It's kind of organic.
Okay.
And then it's not scary when it
Great.
happens organically like that. Yeah, we'd love to have you participate more, so keep coming.
I will. Thank you. Thank
Very
you
nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, ma'am. I'm so honored. Thank you very much. Hi, guys. Hi, Mindy. Hi, Cathy.
Hi. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
And Barbara Clark, I see you. Looks like you've got your hand in the air. Hi, Barbara. Did you want to contribute or ask a question, Barbara?
I think I accidentally raised my hand.
Well, you're trapped now. Do you have any friends or family that have breast cancer?
No, I do not.
Really? It's getting to be pretty, and I mean, you're the rare one. Okay. So
Yeah.
it's funny. It's really come up above the radar. I think maybe you ladies think more longer ago than me, but for me, the last couple of years, it seems to be everywhere. Everyone I talk to. It's kind of scary. And again, I did a fair amount of research for the blog I wrote last week on this topic, as well as I read a lot of Carol's materials that I'm espousing and telling you I think are well done. I read a lot of her materials in the last couple of weeks, and it's really something. It's endemic, and the way it's progressing internationally year after year with more and more people developing it. Do you gals here, you panelists, do you have any ideas on causation besides emotional causation, which is our field? What about environmental?
Yeah, I think all you have to do is turn on the news. I mean, from, Kavanaugh to, we're in crisis. If you look at our world
in crisis.
Yeah, the fires, the earthquakes, the hurricanes.
Yeah.
I mean,
what we've done to the earth.
Yeah.
Hey, Misty's got her hand in the air. Misty, hi. Did you have a question or a comment?
I do. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you good. Good to see you.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you. It's good to see you guys. So ladies, I have a question for you. So there's someone I used to work with back in my days at Apple eons ago. And when I was there, she had gotten breast cancer. It went away, came back, went away, and it came back again with a vengeance. And she's not incredibly open to this kind of work. And it's very much the fight and very much talking about it and very much owning it. And so I'm going to be going to see her. I haven't seen her in a while. And I have worked on her way back when she first got it. And she was actually one of the first people I worked on when I started doing the roaming the world with my table, trying to get practice in. But I have to be honest and say that I don't know what to say to her to not convince her. But I mean, I feel like we'll go guided, see what comes up. But how do I move her away from the fight and into faith?
Can I address that with you, Misty?
Yeah.
At Cuddle, I've dealt with so many women and men and in the position of having cancer, but having had the reoccurrence. And I like to advocate on their behalf sometimes as well too. And the things that we do for them, are we doing them for them or are we doing them for us? I'm not suggesting that you're doing it for you, but the hardest part for anyone that's been diagnosed for cancer, besides being diagnosed with cancer, is having to make decisions that you feel are in the best interest for yourself, that you've made educated decisions for yourself and your treatment, and other people will come along and suggest that maybe you're not doing enough. And I can remember myself personally feeling that way and seeing other people being guided by so many other people. They would be set in their decision and feel really good about what they were doing because that worked for where they were in those moments. And then people would suggest other things to her or to them. And I just remember they've lost so much control. And the little thing that they do have control of is what they're actually going to do to get themselves better. And they deserve that. They deserve to be able to make the decisions of what they need based on their own self at those particular times. I think it's great that we learn of all the other options, like the ones that Deborah had shared. I thought they were so great for anyone that's beginning this course or has somebody they love that's going through it. But I think we really have to follow their lead. I think it's really important to delicately make suggestions, but if you sense that she's retreating from that, I think that she deserves the time to retreat until she comes forward towards you for some support. That's just my personal opinion. I think this program and everything that we do, believe me, I'm building a life on it now. That's what I see myself doing for the rest of my life. But in working with so many people, it's just one of those things that they have to be in control of their decisions. And that's just what I feel personally. Deborah and Mindy and other people may disagree with me, but that's just how I feel personally about it.
Well, and that's actually pretty close to how I feel, because I don't want to push on her, and she's reached out. So, and it's a lunch, or I'll actually go support her and just sit with her, hold her hand, whatever it is. But, you know, again, honestly, doing this type of work and always being mindful and respectful of how much to move forward and how much not to,
Mhm.
it is really
Mhm.
hard to not push, and I don't,
Oh.
but I just can see how much the fight, the push is just depleting her. And so you guys having had that experience, I've not had it. And so I love what you said about respecting because they do need a sense of control, and she is that kind of person, so to speak. And so losing control has been really difficult for her. So
Well, and that's the lesson, of course.
I know.
That's the lesson. Yeah, well,
And but thank you. That's helpful.
Thanks for raising the question, Misty. And I see we have a question from Eva. She said, I had a benign nodule removed from my left breast when I was 21. I feel it had the same energy etiology with my childhood allergies and seasonal asthma. And you're entirely correct on that, Eva. That's all breast related. Allergies and asthma are chest, breast related. She says, but somehow I see it connected to my first chakra somehow. Well, that's genius on your part, Eva, because the immune function is oddly enough very first chakra related. So you're sensing very accurately. She said, I've met other women with this combo of benign breast tumors and allergies and asthma. I wonder if you have any information. So yeah, no, you're right on it. Good for you. That's very, very intuitive, very intuitive. So, you know, honor your own intuition. That's excellent. In the meantime, I see that Dina has posted this page. You can go to, you'll see it there. It's from the Deborah King Center, and it's deborahking.com/path-of-breast cancer. You guys can just copy and paste it out of this window here and go to a page that we created, and we can take you to Carol's information, which again, I thought was extremely well done. I really, at a stage in my own, as Mindy and Cathy know, I'm at a stage in my own development where I feel my job is to be promoting other people and their work. And so I'm looking for people with good work. By the way, if you're someone with good work, you should be reaching out to me, because I really have the capacity to successfully bring you public. You may have an important message that the world needs to hear. And I would be honored to help anyone who's got that kind of significant message. So great being with you guys today. I will, if you're already a member of my family, if you aren't, come on over to deborahking.com and sign in for my newsletter, but join soon, because I will do a mailing soon, more on breast cancer. I'm going to stay on this topic for more than a few days. I think it's critical that we really educate ourselves. If you've ever heard me talk about cancer, I've been saying for years and years and years that cancer is nothing more than a part of ourselves that has momentarily forgotten who it is. So it gets disconnected from us and gets on its own, kind of crazy life. And it's there to help you reconnect all the parts of yourself back to you. It has a wonderful and inspiring message for you once you get out of the, oh my God, somebody just told me I had cancer. It's very scary, as the three of us know, when they call you and tell you that. It is very scary. I still remember the doctor saying to me, believe it or not, this was a few years ago, and he said, I said, well, what could have caused that? I'm only in my 20s. And he goes, well, what do you think? Trying to be a woman lawyer. I mean, how dumb is that? No kidding. I'm supposed to be barefoot and in the kitchen, I guess, according to him. But I had a very successful and kind of revolutionary at the time recovery. And so I've spent the rest of my life helping other people turn their lemons into lemonade. All right, it's been great being with you guys. Again, cut and paste my deborahking.com/path of breast cancer link, so I can, my team can send you some information about Carol's pretty amazing program, and we can all learn more. She's got a really good message, and I was very impressed when I read it. All right, you guys, great being with you. Let's thank our panelists, Mindy and Cathy, and all those who participated.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, you're real experts on this. You're real experts. And so I'm delighted that you could be here.
Thank
All right,
you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Take care. Great to see you. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.